You like TV dramas, right? If you lived through the 2010s, you knew Game of Thrones. It was the show. What made Game of Thrones the phenomenon it was? The characters? Lovable or hateable, they're always fun to watch. The spectacles? Some scenes just look amazing. The spectacles? I imagine that was the draw for a lot. I remember people talking about how no one was safe. New characters came onto the scene and made you fall in love with them, and then they were killed off. Was that it? That gritty darkness? Truth is, no one really knows, because no one has been able to replicate its success. The masses have been searching for that particular blend of acting, writing and tone not found anywhere else, least of all in the end of the original show. I am Adolf Hitler! But maybe they haven't been looking in the right place. From the deep darkness of 70s era British public television, there came a show. A show with tyranny and madness. A show with politics and incest. A show with great characters, and a show which killed them off. A show called I, Claudius, the 1976 BBC costume drama, covers the life of Tiberius Claudius Drusus, and it really is one of history's greatest stories. This era, the first years of the Roman Empire, was in the shadow of nearly a century of civil war. The wars with the Italian allies, the civil wars of Marius and Sulla, the civil war of Pompey and Caesar, the war between the Triumvirate and the Assassins, and the final confrontation between Octavian and Mark Antony. With Antony's suicide, Octavian could rule unopposed as Augustus, and bring about the first era of peace in a very long time. What does Caesar Augustus mean to you? The name probably conjures up images of the ultimate cynical politician, a spin doctor, a tyrant with a face of bleached marble, and a baby attached to his leg. The character in I, Claudius, played majestically by Brian Blessed, is a different kind of Augustus. The Augustus who was constantly snacking, who had terrible, near-illegible handwriting. The Augustus who loved gambling so much he gave his friends money so they could keep playing. The reign of Augustus just feels so vibrant when Blessed is around, despite all the murder politics in the background. The banquets, the gardens, everything feels so dynamic, and Blessed's character is so larger than life that you can't imagine what the show would be like without Augustus.
Now that's what I call poetry. Ovid, I mean, there's no comparison. It's better than Ovid. I don't care what they say. I've never liked that man.
Which makes his eventual absence so much starker. It was never quite clear if there was ever meant to be a second Augustus. This was the issue which tore apart the imperial Julio-Claudian dynasty, a blended combination of Octavian and his wife's pre-existing families. Livia Augusta was the emperor's wife and the first antagonist of the show. Sian Phillips does an incredible job as Livia. She plays the long game, working over decades. Acting the ideal Roman woman, she works from the shadows, playing on people's emotions, their love, and destroying them for it. Murder, slander, and exile. These are the tools she uses to eliminate everyone who stands between the imperial throne and her son, Tiberius. Sian has talked about her struggles with the character, initially trying to give her a more sympathetic bent. That's still there. She knows her actions are unforgivable to the gods. But, as she was advised, Sian really plays up the camp and the evil of her character. This Livia is most of all a villain.
You wicked woman! Wickedness! What's this?
Tiberius, the brooding son of Livia, played by George Baker, is a more torn character. All his mother does for him, he never asked for. To start with, Tiberius speaks about a darkness he can feel deep inside him, but it's the love of his brother, Drusus, and his wife, Vipsania, which keeps him alive. Then Drusus dies, and Tiberius leaves his wife at Livia's behest to marry Augustus's daughter. He's then sent into years of exile in Rhodes, and upon his return, he has to work as the emperor's slavish assistant. By the time Augustus dies at last, Tiberius has been hollowed out of everything but that darkness.
Well, damn him! I retired before and I can retire again. Let his precious grandson run his empire for him. I'm sick to death of it.
Not all the imperial family followed this path. Germanicus, the avenger of the defeat against the Germans, inherited republican sentiments from his father Drusus, and stood as the only opposition to the new tyrant. But the general's popularity couldn't save him from daggers in the dark. All of Germanicus's family remained a threat to be addressed, except, of course, for his simple, harmless brother, Claudius, played by Derek Jacobi. Claudius had a limp and stutter in his youth, and just because of that, he was branded incapable and an idiot. He wasn't. He became a student of Livia and a historian who wrote extensively. This whole story is framed as Claudius's hidden memoirs, uncovered in modern times. Claudius's condition caused so much suffering. He was continually humiliated by his family. Even his mother didn't respect him. But it saved his life. Men who stood tall, like the great Germanicus, had to be cut down, while little harmless Claudius was pliable enough to be ignored, or even bent into your own schemes.
But Claudius knows better. Claudius sways and bends with each little wind that blows.
By which you mean he's weak and cowardly.
Perhaps. But at least he's still here.
But at least he's still here. Yes, still here. And they've all gone, every one of them.
Sejanus, leader of the Praetorian Guard, played by none other than Patrick Stewart, did just that. Tiberius ruled through terror, and he relied on his right-hand Sejanus to carry it out. Sejanus is a complete monster. He has no human tinge like Livia. Tiberius never really wanted any of this, so he retreats to his perversions on Capri, delegating more and more to Sejanus. Unopposed in Rome, he accelerates the purges, murdering 2 sons of Germanicus. He builds a cult of personality, with effigies of himself spread to the masses. He marries his sister to Claudius to tie himself to the imperial dynasty, and when he's refused marriage to his lover, Claudius's sister, he tries with her teenage daughter instead. He has no motives, no principles, no self beyond the pursuit of power, and he is terrifying because of it.
You're merely the putrefaction that spreads after death, the outward and visible sign of its presence.
Nero and Drusus, sons of Germanicus, were killed in the purges, but a third son was kept with the emperor in Capri as a hostage. This son was given the nickname Caligula. Child Caligula is fun to watch, and even here you can tell there's something off with him. But the character he grows into, played by John Hurt, becomes the indisputably best in the show. Caligula is just such a fundamentally strange person. He can be surprisingly friendly at times, including to his uncle Claudius, but he never speaks how a normal person would. And then in the next moment, he's blindingly furious, and in the next, he's telling jokes and making up silly nicknames. You can never tell what he's going to do next, but whatever it is, it's always so tonally inappropriate, and done with such an unshakable self-confidence, that it becomes absolutely hysterical. Gaining Tiberius's confidence on Capri, he becomes his successor, and once Caligula becomes emperor, he goes on a huge bender. He declares himself god, marries his sister, and gets a fake beard. He forces senators and their wives into a big orgy, and weds Claudius to a beautiful dancer as a joke. It's also very entertaining, and also very sad. Caligula knows there's something wrong with himself. He can't sleep. He's constantly tormented by visions, but knowing what he is doesn't change what he does. Worse than what the emperor does is what everyone else does not. Caligula openly commits sacrilege, makes his horse a consul, and the so-called men of Rome do nothing. No Germanicus rises in objection. In the end, Caligula falls, not because he was a tyrant, but because he was childish.
Well, of course I ordered no triumphs. Do you think I'd order triumph for myself?
But you ordered us not to order any.
Yes, and you took me at my word, didn't you? Typical.
The heroes of Rome may not have survived Livia, Tiberius and Sejanus, but poor simple Claudius, the court fool, did, and after the end of Caligula, the Praetorian Guard makes him emperor.
Long live the Emperor Claudius!
What Livia spent decades working for, Claudius obtains by complete happenstance. Claudius is a fundamentally passive character. That's kind of his whole deal. While others take action, he watches and waits. That means the quality of the show depends on the villain driving the plot forwards. And after Caligula, that role is taken by Messalina, the new emperor's wife. Sheila White acts the character well, it's just the character isn't very good. Her motivation just isn't very interesting. At her downfall, I had no strong feelings other than relief that she's finally off the screen.
No! No!
This is the low point of the show, but it really comes back for the finale. I, Claudius is, at least I think, a show about the corrosive effect of dictatorship, both on individuals and on society. Just compare scenes from the start and the end of the show. Under Claudius, having feasts in the triclinium looked so dour and depressing. Under Augustus, everyone looked so much more alive. Children were having fun playing in the garden, where you could eat fresh figs from the trees. You don't notice it while it's there, you only remember it when it's gone. These were the fruits of Augustus's peace, but it was in pursuit of Augustus's power that Tiberius gave up everything which made him happy. It was to consolidate this power that Tiberius elevated Sejanus and unleashed a terror. And in such terror, the people of Rome debased themselves before a madman who trampled all over their sacred traditions. The heartless, the perverse, and the cowardly rise to the top in Augustus's system, while those with virtue are trampled underfoot. Claudius, the one man who's seen it all, realizes this. He becomes, in effect, an accelerationist. He endeavours to have the worst candidate possible succeed him, so the whole rotten system is brought down.
Let all the poisons that lurk in the mud hatch out.
It's a very classical Roman morality tale. I'm sure Cato would have loved it. Is it true, though? Well, this show is based on the 1930s books by Robert Graves, which are largely based on histories by Tacitus and Suetonius. These historians certainly had some very obvious biases against the Caesars, and also women in general, and they probably just made a bunch of this stuff up. And that's not even mentioning all the supernatural prophecies of the Messiah Graves puts in, but that's all worth it for more Herod Agrippa content. So did Caligula really do all that stuff? Maybe not. But sometimes you gotta let an evil emperor be an evil emperor. Not like there's anyone around to sue the BBC for slander. So that's I, Claudius. The last few minutes wrap up Claudius's story in the most perfect way imaginable. They're genuinely some of the most touching moments in television I've ever seen. You might not like this show, even if you liked Game of Thrones. The word best used to describe it is theatrical. It's a TV play, an extremely well-produced one, but a play nonetheless. The acting is very hammed up in places. If you don't like near pantomime villains, you won't like Caligula nearly as much as I do. And it's certainly no visual spectacle. You can see John Hurt here being stabbed by quite possibly some of the bluntest swords in existence. I do really like a lot of the prop and set work though, and the aging makeup is impressive even by today's standards. The pacing is completely insane. Months or even years of time, and hundreds of miles of distance can pass between scenes, and you're not handheld with long establishing shots and location cards. Actually seeing the characters progressively age over time is what helps you orient yourself. If you watched Game of Thrones for the other spectacle, you actually find a lot to like here. I am genuinely shocked a lot of this was allowed to air on 70s public television. In the end, though, you have to ask yourself why you actually watch TV dramas. When stuff now can have a budget of over $1 billion and everything has a 3-year production time, maybe people need to look back and realize that all you needed was good acting and a good story to create one of the greatest works of television in media history. To create I, Claudius.